All right. Good morning, everyone. Brad Roltgen here with the Fresno Bitcoin and Cryptocurrency Investors Group. Today, we are talking about evaluating a cryptocurrency before we, drop our hard-earned funds into that. And so Anthony is joining us. He's got a little presentation we're going to start with, and then we'll kind of get into some of the practical parts of, kind of walk through the process. Does anybody have any specific questions or, any notes you want to make me aware of before we get into it? Still got a few folks joining us too. Okay, did I see Gloria yet? I haven't seen Gloria. Okay, morning, Wendy. Good to have you with us. All right, Anthony, are you ready to share?
Sure, let's go ahead and jump on in as long as everyone else is ready.
Yeah, if not, we have the recording. So
all right.
You should be able to share your screen. I've got it set to that, so go ahead.
I will in just a second.
Okay.
So just a heads up, everyone, keep in mind this is kind of a bare bones presentation because I want to spend more time on this with you guys actually doing more of a deep dive into these cryptos that you may find this kind of applies more to. So to start with, my name is Anthony. Just a little disclaimer, obviously, not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, just educational for fun to help you guys out. We're going to go kind of bare bones and dive in. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And
yeah, and feel free to, jump in, raise your hand, type into chat if you guys have questions or anything. Yeah.
Give me just 1 second. Sorry, it booted me out of Zoom. There we go. Screen. All right. So first off, an important piece to keep in mind is what is fundamental analysis and how does that apply to research in crypto? And this is going to differ based on whether you're talking about, say, for instance, a cryptocurrency itself or a token, because they both serve different purposes. But for this kind of brief overview, we're going to kind of talk about them in more of a general sense. So let's dive right in. So when it comes to fundamental analysis, one thing that is important to keep in mind for anyone who's not familiar with it is that it's based on the long-term implied value of something, any kind of investment essentially. And it's a way of kind of evaluating, okay, based on the key metrics within this, whether it's a company, whether it's a house, whether it's, a bond, just the overall metrics that determine, okay, what is the intrinsic value of this piece? And when you're looking at, say, for instance, stocks, which is where fundamental analysis comes from, those can be evaluated primarily based on things related to their industry, their size, their market sector, their projected future growth. There's a lot of different metrics depending even on just the industry that it's in, how big it is, or what it does. So we'll go ahead and jump on in for crypto. So it's similar in many ways to assessing a company, but it also differs pretty strongly because of its uniqueness. This isn't going to be quite the same as a company that's been, around for decades, such as like IBM. You don't have a lot of background information to go off of. So when you keep that in mind, you really want to focus on, okay, what are the primary purposes of this cryptocurrency, this token? And then you want to look at things like the industry that it's in, whether you might have a crypto, say, for instance, like, let's say helium. Helium is very specific. Helium is specifically for 5G Wi-Fi and mining. So you're not going to compare something in that industry, say to Bitcoin. They're not running the same metrics essentially. And then you also want to look at things like the trading volume, the history of the token itself or the crypto, and who the leadership team is behind it. So why would you want to look at trading volume? First off, trading volume gives you a good idea if that crypto is even still viable. You want to see what it looks like, what it's been doing over the last few months, what it's been doing since its inception. You want to look at the history just to kind of see, okay, have they been kind of meeting deadlines? Do they have a clear guideline for what they're expecting to do?
What is
And
that?
their leadership team. Oh, go ahead.
What is that?
Is it?
Oh.
You have to listen to it, right?
Oh, I think there's, Frank just had some background. Go ahead, Anthony. Sorry about that.
No worries. And then leadership, just briefly as an overview, you want to look at that because you want to see who the team is. You want to know, just like a company, what does this group of people have a background in? How well versed are they in this? Have they been able to do what they said they were going to do previously? And then this can be difficult to assess because, again, this isn't like, anything regulated currently by the SEC or anyone else where there's, their entire slide deck presentation on their company that has to be meeting certain standards. So you have to have multiple sources for this. And even those, to be fair, those can be misleading too. So going a little bit forward here, first off, thinking of what the project is. So let's take one, for example, like I mentioned before, Helium. I'll go ahead and share my screen on this one just real quick. Sorry about that. Let's see. So if you're looking at Helium, here's their basic website. One of the key pieces you can do with a lot of different cryptos is looking into what their website looks like. Does it look like something that's well put together? You see something that has, multiple use functions on the website page. You've got decent looking backgrounds, stuff that actually details stuff they're doing. You've got an outline of where they've been mentioned before. You've got the fact that they're mentioning their network is live. How many hotspots they have, because that's what they're focused on is 5G. Then you've got one of the ways that they function, which is mining. So these are some basics you can look at, but you don't want to just use what they're telling you, obviously. This is always going to be padded information. They want to sell you on their product. So something you can do is you can say, okay, I wanted to look at Helium. Next, we're going to go ahead and jump into CoinMarketCap and look at what they have to say about it. So say here they have a search function, HNT, which is the token name. And so you'll look at some of their basics. What's their price currently? What's it been doing? But more importantly, let's see. Look at where they're traded. This is a key piece to keep in mind. They're traded on Binance, Binance US, which are huge. Even though they're centralized exchanges, they are huge, which is an important piece to keep in mind. My apologies for the background noise. Aside from that, you've got other companies like KuCoin, you've got FTX, you've got Crypto.com, Bybit. These are all well-known exchanges. Now, when you start getting a little bit deeper in the list, you might see things like, okay, Big One, Mandala Exchange, Corbit. To be honest, I've never used any of these. I don't know much of anything about them. And so you really want to take it with a grain of salt if you start to see a token or a cryptocurrency that's traded exclusively on an exchange that you've never heard about. And then as we mentioned before, you've got trading volume. So you want to look at the trading volume, say like here. It mentions having about 12 million in trading volume probably per day, which gives you a good idea that, okay, this one has some trading volume. It's not high up there. It's not going to be comparable to Bitcoin. It's not going to be probably even comparable to Cardano, but it is comparable to something within that $1 million range. And you want to look at the different exchanges. Like, say, for instance, one of the ones I've never heard of before, Wazir X. That one only has $781 of volume traded on it. That tells you something. These kind of metrics give you a great idea and a great basis as to what the currency, the token is doing itself. So I'm going to switch us back just briefly. All right. So using sites like I heard someone mention before, CoinGecko, CoinMarketCap, you're going to use these to evaluate their basic fundamentals. You can get other information from these sites as well. Like a lot of times they'll have their white paper, they'll have their history, their previous development, even any news related to them. But so you're going to look at, obviously, like I mentioned, where it's traded. You want to look at things like active wallets and users for the actual cryptocurrency itself. This is going to be a little hard to find at first, but once you get used to it, it's not that hard. So let me go ahead and give us a little example of this. If anyone wants to chime in and just toss in an idea as to a crypto to look at, just so we can kind of do this together.
Yeah, I know Nicholas had mentioned a couple. Nicholas, did you have any specific one you wanted to look at?
Yeah, I remember what it is now. It's Elon Hype.
Elon Mike?
Elon Hype, Hype.
HYT.
One word, HYPE.
Like hype it up,
Oh,
HYPE. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just one word.
So we've got Elon Hype. Let's look at some of the things like, for instance, the white paper. Nothing.
That doesn't look good.
What was that?
That doesn't look good.
Not a good start, no. But it's important to remember because sometimes you're not going to get it on every website. So we'll go back. We've got Twitter, we've got Hypebeast. Let's see if we can find one that's a little more reputable. Okay, since I'm not seeing it on there, we'll do Elon Hype, CoinGecko. And apparently I can't spell this morning. Let's see if they have the white paper available.
Okay, my screen, I'm not seeing your screen. I don't know if anybody else is.
Thank you for the heads up on that.
Okay.
Should have stayed on there, but it didn't. Are you able to see it now?
Now, all I'm seeing is a black screen with a white line in the middle. Is anybody else seeing the same thing, or is it me?
Yeah, same for me too. I think what happened was when you shared screen, you just chose that one window and you might have closed that window out. And so now I can't share anything.
Now we're good. There we go.
Okay, I see what happened. I switched monitors and it decided to discontinue.
That's always fun. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. You've got CoinGecko, and let's see if they have any information on this. Sometimes you can find it under developer, but so far it doesn't look like we're finding anything there either. Let's go to their socials. Not very active. Let's see if we go onto their Discord, see if they have any information on here.
Now, the 89 members I saw there real quick, which
89 members?
Yeah.
That's pretty low for a
Yeah.
project like this.
Yeah.
So given that, we probably won't find too much information on their
Oh, now they're up to you just joined. There's 90, and figure there's probably some fake accounts or users, in there.
You always want to look at that too. That's how you kind of determine it too, is the active wallets and users on their even on their social pages. So right here, even on CoinGecko, it shows nothing for their actual market cap. They have no idea. No. That could be just because it's CoinMarketCap and they don't have the data, but look at their fully diluted value. According to CoinGecko, it's only 24,000. That's very low for any token or cryptocurrency.
Yeah, well, in the trading volume, $54 is like, come on.
Yeah, that's nothing. Now, that could mean you're getting in at an early stage, which is entirely possible.
Yeah,
But-
that's what. Let me just bring up, because Chris Chris has been chatting in chat, which is great, and he mentioned actually this might be a great token to try so many red flags. So, Chris, what do you elaborate on that a little bit? What you mean by that?
I think he was being sarcastic.
Oh, okay.
So I've been down this road where I've been trying to look at very new and upcoming tokens / coins, and everything you're looking at is great. It's looking at the team, looking at the social media aspect of it, but the red flags are just when you see that there's not much interaction. Even the Discord that you just went to, where it's like, it's not established. And so I know where you're coming from with trying this coin, because I've been there, done that, where I'm trying to get at the very, 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 very beginning, and you want to kind of ride the surf all the way up. But there's so many out there that you're not going to hit it, and you're pretty much going to be throwing your money away. I've been there, done that so many times. It's almost where you want to kind of get onto something that's already established, not the very beginning. The percentage of you trying to get a brand new coin and be able to become a millionaire just because it moves over 3 or 4 zeros, it's so hard, and there's so many scammers out there that this is just showing red flags to me left and right.
Yeah, and that's more than fair to say. And that's one of the things that is important when you're kind of evaluating this, because you're looking at, is this crypto actually doing anything? And right now, it doesn't look like it is. Now, that's not to say it never will.
Hang on, Anthony. If you wouldn't mind, could you go to the 3-month chart?
Sure.
And Chris, to your points, I appreciate you giving your insights. I have not invested in this, nor do I care to at this point. I'm just trying to gain understanding about what is going on with this chart, because it goes from practically 0 to 10xing in like overnight. And then it does that and drops back to 0, and then it does it again a week later. Somebody is pumping the price and then dumping it regularly. And if you could time that, it's feasible. You could make a lot of money.
Yeah, and the other thing is there's so little volume that somebody coming in with $200 could cause that to happen, type of thing.
Right. Yeah, as long as someone's willing to pay a high price for it, it'll jump that price up. But it
could also be timing
regularly.
on like an exchange. Like, let's say somebody knows that they're going to be put up on an exchange, and then they jump out of it. So they could be putting up their own money to get other people's money to make it look like a pump, and then they know that they're going to dump. And this could be a series of pumps and dumps, is my opinion as well.
Yeah, it looks like a scam happening to me too, Chris. But I'm trying to figure out how they can pull it off.
Well, so when you look at something like this, and you mentioned, pump and dump and scams, this is kind of the volume we're seeing here. We're seeing over 3 months, we've got these big spikes and then big dips immediately. It doesn't last very long. It dips right back down, goes to nothing, up again, down right back to the baseline, huge pump, huge dump, huge pump, huge dump. These are ones that honestly, if you're going to be trying to jump into, you're not doing fundamental analysis on. This is going to be all TA, technical analysis, and trying to figure out, okay, what's their pattern? What's their pattern of pumping and dumping? It's not one that's going to be fundamentals.
And when it goes down, there's like no volume at that point. That's why, that seeing that volume, the daily volume was important. Because when it goes down, there's like no activity until the next pump.
But it makes me wonder, is it possible someone's going to buy it right after it pumps? Because since it goes sideways a little while, it seems like somebody's buying it at that level, and then everyone wants to sell and it goes back to 0. So
well, when you say everyone, it might be two people, based
Yeah,
on the
okay.
volume and that kind of thing. So, and yeah,
Sure.
yeah. No, this is a good one to look at. And I mean, we're not trying to beat up on anybody or anything like that for, bringing something like this up. Cause this
Yeah.
I think this is a great example.
That's
I have another,
that's what
I
I
have
meant.
another really good example for you. Really fascinating token that actually 14,986 X in just 15 days.
Well, and that's the other thing is when we're looking at these, where in the life cycle of the project are we looking at? So for example, this one, now it looks like this is, 3 months it's been around. But if we only looked at, say, the first up till June 16th there, maybe this is a new project just getting started and they haven't, really quote unquote launched or started marketing it or sharing it or, doing videos on it and, podcasts about it, that kind of thing. So that's the other thing that to keep in mind. Where are they in the life cycle? Because, maybe it's a couple guys on the team testing it back and forth. But when you see it go on for 3 months like that, then it's a different, story.
With a name like Elon Hype, I fully expect the guys behind this to be scammers.
Right.
I
Kind of
mean,
tells you that. Yeah.
there have been at least probably 20 Elon coins in tokens now that are totally just trying to rob people.
Well, and they may even just be looking to do it as a meme coin. And again, same thing. Pardon the language, is a shit coin. Like that's the purpose of a lot of these tokens, is just to do nothing. They're just there as a joke, or they're there as a pump and dump.
Right.
And so if you're trying to do those as an investment, you're not doing that long term. That's a losing battle there. You're looking at that as short term, volatility, trying to trade it, but this is something you'd have to sit on a lot to look at and be like, okay, this is what its pattern is. Let me watch for the pattern and quickly jump in, quickly jump out. You're not doing fundamental analysis.
And some of these contracts that are set up in such a way that they can disable the ability to sell your token.
Yeah, that's very true.
So that might be what's going on here as well. Only the owner of the contract can sell and no one else.
Yep. Well, and
the interesting one I think you guys would all get a kick out of is Mitsubishi.
What is that one?
Mitsubishi. It's BITSUBISHI, and that's the one that practically 15,000 X in 15 days.
With a B as in boy instead of M.
Yeah, I just put Bitsu.
Oh, Mitsubishi?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So this one has a bit more of a history. You can go to the all and see when it began. There was a huge spike not long. I think it was in the bull run of 2021. But look at the start price, $5.
Yep.
And it went to 50,000.
Holy cow.
And so in that, there's an important piece to keep in mind. When you look at something escalating that high, you want to try to see, okay, so if it went up to, what was that, 50,000 at one point, what was the actual token supply? And you also want to see what the token was doing at that time. So right here, one thing that's interesting is if you look at the bottom where you've got your trading volume itself, yeah, there's a peak, but the trading volume isn't severely high. A 24-hour trading volume of 33 or 3,300,000, no, actually 33,000.
Yeah, 334,000.
Yeah.
334,000 trading volume in 24 hours. But before that, like even just a few days,
yeah,
you're at 69,000.
Not a whole lot of money trading hands, but it's interesting nonetheless. And if you look lately, it's doing crazy things like going 150 X's. And if you just buy low and sell high, there's potential to make some money.
There is. And again, that's one that you're going to use technical analysis on more to kind of identify, because it doesn't look like this is a consistent pattern with any kind of like
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Anthony, I wouldn't even say technical analysis could help you with this one. Because it's very volatile, very unpredictable.
You might be right there. I mean, the TA might not even really help with this. You'd be looking just for quick spikes in activity and jump in the wave.
Yeah, it's a gamble. It's like, do I think it's going to go 10x or 150x? And whoever fails to recognize what it's going to do is the one with the old maid card at the end.
Exactly.
So,
And something to keep in mind is like, if you're looking at that, what else can you find as a red flag for something like that? If you're like really invested, you really think it's a good idea, well, scroll on up, kind of find, okay, we've got a white paper. Let's see if this one even has one. It looks like it does. If it decides to load. And again, keep in mind when you're doing these, the white papers can tend to be very technically written. So if it's hard to understand at any point, try searching some of the terms that don't make sense, or even going to YouTube, go to their Discord, go to their social media, see if they have breakdowns of it, especially interviews with the people who run the team. But so for this one, it says best digital asset global payment solution. So their idea is to be a payment solution. So they need to be fast and efficient, right? Their goal probably is not decentralization, because you've got a three-pronged factor into what a crypto can be: either decentralized, fast, or it can be secure. And you can have 2 out of 3. It's been almost impossible to get all 3 in a crypto. So if it's a payment solution, you know which 2 you're likely going to see. First, 100% fully driven by community decentralized cryptocurrency, aims to decentralize finance, completely secure, and to provide the most secure payment system. So if they're saying they actually want to do decentralized and security, that means they're not going for speed. So you want to look at how their token actually operates. Now, granted, we've already got huge red flags for doing fundamental analysis, but this is just a good example of what it looks like when you start breaking them down to see more red flags, or even see what the company's looking for.
Can I say a little something here?
Go
Yeah,
for it.
jump in, Michael.
Okay. I've been at this a few years, and when you play something like this Mitsubishi here, whatever it's called, this kind of reminds me, these spikes that they have, kind of reminds me back in December of 2017 with Bitcoin. Very few people actually were able to sell when it spiked, because all the exchanges were just crashed. The only way that you could actually benefit for something like this, very few people, that one you showed was actually over $60,000, in the 63, 64,000 range. The only way you could have got anywhere close to that, even with, say, within 10%, is you just have a sell order that's in there. You buy it at $5 or $10 or $20, and you just put a sell order in, and then you just go, okay, what kind of crazy number? I'll put in 50K, and it's the only way that you're going to get that, because there's not enough volume for you to be able to get in there with everybody else rushing and trying to do that. It has to be already set and ready to go. And then you can't TA any of this kind of stuff, because TA is based upon history. What has it done before? How does it do things? How does it react? It's sort of like how does its heart beat? And these things have no heartbeat. In my opinion, they have no heartbeat. They're simply something that is just out there, and they're trying to make some sort of inroads. And I mean, there's thousands of these things, just thousands of these things. And so, yes. And so, anyhow, I just wanted to make those points right there, is because, we look at these different things as if it's something like Bitcoin or Ethereum, or even, oh geez, what's the other major coin?
BNB,
Huh?
Binance, BNB.
No, what's the third coin?
Solana.
Solana.
Or
there's-
something like
Cardano,
that. I mean, those have volume, those have history, those you can look at and you can run TA on those and you can be somewhat successful with that, especially with Bitcoin and Ethereum. But anyhow, I guess I'm just throwing my nickels worth out there, and there's thousands of these. How many, Brad, do you think there are 10,000 tokens, coins, whatever, or is that like underestimating?
Well, no, yeah, coin market cap is showing 21,000 at this point, and they're
Okay.
usually low. You know, CoinGecko will probably have another 10 or 20% on top of that, but 90% of them are not doing anything.
No, and it's just, I mean, I'd never even heard of this one before. I mean, look at it. Today it's down 24, 30%, whatever it is. So, I mean, this is and if they have the volume, what'd you say, Anthony? $330,000 volume. I mean, that's literally nothing. That could just be one whale just having a fun day, you know, and that's not even really a whale. But anyhow, that's just my nickels worth. So thanks for letting me yap.
Hey, Mike,
Oh, thank you, Michael.
I've got a question for you, Mike, before you go. Because you mentioned something about in the 2017 bull run, you couldn't sell your Bitcoin. At what point did those exchanges shut down? Because I wasn't in the market back then. And I'm wondering, you know, how can you really profit if you're waiting for that peak and you know when it's coming and you're ready to sell, but then you just can't. So like,
Well, the thing is now is they're much more prepared. I mean, Coinbase now is a publicly traded company, and they have, you know, they have huge amounts of money that have been put into it and that they raised. And so, you know, basically what their problem was is their servers crashed because everybody and their mother was trying to get in and you just couldn't do it. I was there. I mean, I was trying to sell it. I mean, I had bought, you know, in the $2,000 and $3,000 range. And, you know, even at 15 or 16, I was trying to sell. I couldn't even get on. And it was the same thing at Binance and everywhere else. Nobody could get on because, like I said, everybody and their mother was just like, wow, this thing spiked from $10,000, $11,000 up to $19,000. And it was like, it wasn't very long that it was up there. And somebody sold, but because you made a new high, so somebody had to sell. But now all these things are much more well-funded. I mean, the servers they have are much more robust. And so your chances of having a spike like that and not being able to get in are much lower. I will caveat saying that if Bitcoin got back up to its all-time high in that $67,000, $69,000 range, and you had a day where it spiked to 125, let's say, well, you're going to have a lot of people, even myself, in there trying to sell at that 100K, 120K mark. I don't know what's going to happen at that point. You have millions more people. You weren't even in the market then, right, Nicholas?
no.
And so now you and 5 million or 20 million other people are in there going, you know, I bought in the $20,000 or $50,000 range. Now it's 100, 125. I'm, you know, I mean, I've just made 50 grand. I'm out of here. And so I don't know what's going to happen, but I like to think that they'll be able to handle that. Now that you've got institutional monies in there, they want to be able to have that liquidity. And if they don't, they wouldn't be in it.
What was the sellability like in 2021 and the peak of like April and May? Do you know?
You know, I didn't sell anything. I'm a long-term holder. I'm holding out for between 200,000 and 300,000. That's my thing. So I don't know. I think the amount of liquidity that we had at that time was good. I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear any anecdotal evidence from anybody saying, you know what, when it was 60,000, I couldn't sell. There was no peak, if you remember. It didn't spike, excuse me.
Yeah, it kind of went sideways at the peak.
Yeah, it just kind of worked its way up there over a few days or a few weeks. Whereas the 19 high in 2017, that was, I don't think that lasted hours, you know, a day maybe.
That was a crazy roller coaster.
Yeah, I mean, it was truly one of those roller coasters where you're at the top and then they send you straight down at, you know, at 110-degree angle. Woo! That was fast.
Yeah.
So I think now that you'll have, I think that the ability to liquidate or to buy at any level at any time is 1,000 times better than it was in 2017 or 18, in my humble opinion and experience.
Well, I'm concerned because I know there's a bunch of corruption going on at these exchanges, and I think it seems they would just shut it down if they knew it was about to peak in the next couple of days, and don't let anyone buy or don't let anyone sell except for their friends.
Well, I don't, like I said, these are publicly traded companies. Well, at least Coinbase is, Coinbase Pro. And I mean, there are legal ramifications for doing things like you just mentioned, and serious legal ramifications. And so I don't think that's, we can just go back to the highs in the high 60s and made it twice. Yeah, I think 64 was the first one, and then it went up to like 68, 69. And it was there, and you could have gone in and sold whatever you wanted. Anybody could, small, large. And so I don't think that's really in Bitcoin. In other things, I'm pretty much Bitcoin only. All these other things look like fun. I have a little SHIB, and it's really it's $1,000, and that's it. That's all I'm willing to risk for that one day when it shoots up and loses a couple zeros in one day. And I have a sell in on that at a certain point. And if I get it, I get it. If I don't, it's a risk. So I don't think, Nicholas, that you have any worries for Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Litecoin was the other one I was thinking about. I think those are the liquidity on those. And same thing with Solano and other things like that. I think your liquidity is excellent. And, anything can happen. Who would think that when the market went crazy, when COVID came out, that oil would be negative $35 a barrel, negative. I've never seen anything. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. So could it happen? Sure. Is it likely? A tenth of a percent that you wouldn't be able to get in. That's just my nickel's worth, and there you go.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. The other thing that happened in 2017, and I think might be more likely to be a problem or an issue, is when they were limiting withdrawals. So they would say, okay, you can't withdraw your Ethereum, for the next 6 hours, or can't withdraw Bitcoin or whatever. And so these exchanges were literally, caught with their pants down, where they didn't have that number of Bitcoin, because if half of their customers traded from, they can trade from Ethereum to Bitcoin, and it's just a ledger entry on Coinbase's computer. That doesn't mean that they have that number of Bitcoin all of a sudden. So what happened is they'd have to go out and buy, Litecoin on the blockchain, get it into their system, so then they could send, a half to me, 1 Bitcoin to you, 2 Bitcoin to Michael, whatever, that kind of thing. So that's what I saw more. So I wasn't doing a lot of trading, but you'd log into an exchange and it's like, oh, we're limiting withdrawals of this coin or that coin, or we're doing wallet maintenance, or whatever they called it. So that I would be more concerned about that than trying to be able to trade type of thing. And that's just a good example of why you don't want to keep your coins on an exchange. You want to keep them in your, in a cold wallet, or something like Exodus or Trust Wallet, where you're controlling the private keys. So just a comment there. All right, Anthony, go ahead and let's get back to the topic here. And if there's any, maybe if there's another one to look at, or maybe a little less risky one, maybe.
Well, and so what you were just mentioning is actually a really good point that kind of goes along with what we were talking about in checking the pulse, is when you're trying to figure out if something is likely to be able to be traded when you want it to be, having something like this where the only source it's traded on is PancakeSwap, a DEX, is not a good sign. You want something that has multiple sources, because that way you can have something that if one exchange is down, you have some of yours in another exchange, or you can go ahead and buy or sell in a different exchange from your cold wallet. Something like that is going to be extremely helpful. So making sure you have multiple markets you can sell from or buy from is huge in case one goes down. Just kind of changing gears back though. Let's see. I didn't want to share the screen this time. There we go. Okay. So keeping in mind, like I mentioned, you can look over things like YouTube, Google, search aggregators to kind of give you some of that basic information for the projects that you want. But again, some of the key pieces, again, are going to be active wallets and users. That tells you so much more than, okay, how much volume was just traded in a day. That's good to know. But if you take on a token or a cryptocurrency and you look at it and you go, oh, there was 334,000 in one day traded, but there's only 15 active wallets or users, kind of a red flag. So then you just want to, like I said before, kind of mention looking on social media to see if they're regularly posting, if the community interacts with them as well. That's a huge metric. So one thing I just want to share on that, let's say, for instance, Cardano and Reddit even. Okay. So looking at just even how often there are posts for this, you've got getting started, a newbie's guide. When was this posted? Let's see. 2 years ago. And you know what? I know Cardano is active, but that's a bad sign for me. So I want to keep looking.
Well, and that one was pinned. Yeah, that one was pinned just because it's a guide there. So that's probably why.
Yeah, good point. And that's just as a general idea for a red flag is if you see ones that haven't been posted in a couple of years, that's not a great idea if that's all you're seeing. But you've got this one 12 hours ago from an ambassador moderator for Cardano. This just their basic discussions. They've got scam warnings on it as well. Shows that they're active. They've got videos from the founder giving updates on it. Now, granted, this is a huge top 10 crypto project. So you're not going to see this from every crypto you evaluate. But seeing even something like this is helpful. All right, so let's go ahead and jump back over.
Maybe since we were looking at that Mitsubishi,
Okay.
and that's on the BNB, maybe show how to see the number of active users or wallets.
Mitsubishi. I think I spelled that wrong.
Well, there's an extra I at the end, or U.
Thank you. How to buy Mitsubishi. Let's see. Active wallets. Here we go. Now, granted, this is from the beginning of the year pretty much. But some of the sources you can find are like DApp Radar. That's a really good one to use pretty often. Active wallets by category. So this is not what we need for this one. I think this is just a general over. Yeah, this is an industry report. My apologies for that. Let's see, search.
Yeah, I'm going to paste the link in here to chat to BSC scan if you want to grab that and look at that. That shows the number of holders.
Okay.
Yeah,
13,833 addresses. So considering that, that's not a large number of holders for a cryptocurrency, but one that's early on, it could be. Total supply, that's an important piece to keep in mind as well. you've got 333 million.
Yeah. Now,
But
if you
you're-
click on the holders tab, just scroll down a little bit, and that might be a little bit telling. You look at those percentages up through
Mhm.
number 7, and then what happens with number 8?
almost nothing in the remaining ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an important, huge piece to keep in mind is looking at how much is actually allocated to certain wallets. But something that's really interesting here is if you look back at their white paper, it mentions that they're a smart contract function. So when you have a smart contract, that actually means that you're likely to have a large portion allocated to a certain smart contract, which shows as a wallet. Doesn't necessarily mean this is a smart contract wallet, but it is entirely possible. So you want to keep that in mind. The type of token or crypto you're dealing with will tell you more about what the actual allocation should be to certain wallets and what that might look like. This one has a lot of, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've heard people talk about this being able to identify which one's the liquidity holding wallet. If you get on the social medias, maybe at least you are told that a certain wallet address is that. I don't know how true it could be taken as, but you know.
Well, and given that, let's see if we can find that information on their website. They say they're trying to be transparent. So a huge piece of that is going to be knowing what that actual smart contract address is. So let's see, it's Mitsubishi smart contract wallet address. Let's see if that gives us anything. BSC scan. Zero BNB, content creator, token tracker, Mitsubishi. I'm not seeing anything on their token specifically though.
It's like nothing's really happened for the past 149 days. It's like almost
Exactly.
all of the things were 140. There's one that was a few that were 127 days ago, but it's like they just.
So let's try something. So we've got that. Let's go back to here. Oh, you know what? I copied over everything. Still not getting anything for that owner address, which is kind of concerning. Let's try the actual account address. Nope. Let's just try checking it against it. So let's do this the cheap and easy way. That address versus the one listed on Mitsubishi, which is actually, let's just try that. Sometimes that can be helpful too. Okay. So we're getting quite a few different websites confirming that that looks to be the actual accurate smart contract address. So considering what you were saying, Brad, that does seem kind of concerning. 147 days with no activity?
Yeah.
So this is just an easy way of kind of confirming the actual use of the token or the smart contract in this case, because that's their actual primary use case is going to be that smart contract, because in their white paper, they mentioned they're trying to be an alternative financial solution, and that smart contract is a huge part of it. Where is that? Right here. They use the smart contract to be safe from errors, and they try to keep in mind that they're using it on the BNB chain so that no one can change its functions in the future. But if that contract isn't being used, that means there's really no volume being traded in or out of the smart contract. And that's what the token is used for, essentially. So taking that into account, that's just
Yeah,
another piece.
There's been some transfers as well as recent as 5 minutes ago. But it's just like quantity 1.047. It looks like there's almost fees. Yeah, there's just not a lot going on.
No, and that could easily be them even working on the contract itself, working on the project, but it's hard to tell. And if you're going to dump your money into it, you really want to make sure it's something you can feel confident in. So let's see. Let's try another example of this. Let's try something a little bit larger. So we've got AVAX, Avalanche. They've got multiple projects built within their network. They've had a lot of growth lately, but they've also tanked in price. And so when you're thinking fundamental analysis, you're like, okay, is this something I want to get behind? But an important piece to keep in mind when you're looking at a project like this, let's look at, do they have it on here? If they don't, we'll move on to a different way of doing this. AVAX news. So they've got partner stuff here. They've got warnings for Avalanche, but these are kind of broad, it looks like. So the one thing that really stands out is the scandal. And so you want to look at what kind of things have recently happened when you evaluate these. It's just like a company. So if you're looking at what a company has done recently, you want to see what's been out in the news. They got in trouble for a lot of issues with having a recording of one of their lawyers getting on tape talking with someone else about going after other cryptocurrencies to try to sue them so that they couldn't, essentially they just couldn't continue building their projects. And so if you look at this a little bit more in depth, you look at, it's got a little bit of like price changes, and you want to look if that coincides with the date that some of this information came out. So let's see. AVAX scandal. See what the oldest one we can find for that is. August 29th, August 29th, 7 days ago, August 29th, September 13th. So chances are August 29th is probably going to be one of the earliest mentions of it. And if we do that, just to keep that in mind for later, AVAX price chart. And then we go in and see, where did we start seeing our spikes and our dips? August 29th. So we got our first major dip on the 12th, but that was probably more of a macro factor. And then you've got another huge dip here on around the 17th and 18th, which I'd be willing to bet, even though the news broke online here around the 29th, there was probably more details that came out before that to people that were well acquainted with the project. So if you start seeing trading volume and spikes in price, dips in price, you want to look at why that might have happened. Sometimes you're not going to find anything, but in these cases, you want to see, okay, it's kind of around the same time they got into hot water. So that's probably something that's going to affect their price for a while. But looking at fundamental analysis, you're going to think, okay, if I'm looking at what actually happened, how long is this likely to affect the project itself? Do I think this is something that's going to tank their price indefinitely? Is it something that actually changes the fundamentals of the company itself, of the project? Or is this something that's really negative press that once something worse comes out, that's going to kind of get swept under the rug and under the back burner, and possibly good news could come out for this project and change it again. So these are all important pieces to keep in mind. But another key piece to keep in mind is checking to see what the community says about it, because the community is going to be one of the largest drivers. So they've got a good, strong following, it looks like. Let's see how many. Oh, yeah, they've got 761,000 followers. And let's see, they've been around since 2018, another good sign. Now let's see how active they are. August 8th was a pinned tweet 1 hour ago. And they're mentioning a new massive multiplayer online. I'm not familiar with RTS, but a game where they can play across the world, mine and build and fight to become the ruler of something. So these games are starting to become more prevalent across cryptocurrencies. So if you start to see these, that's great, but you want to make sure that these games actually have activity getting towards building them. And if you're looking at the crypto itself, you want to see that this game has some way of playing in with the token or currency itself. If the game is just something built on top of it, that's, that drives people in, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the underlying price of the token or of the crypto, because it has no value in that game. All right. So I just want to kind of see from everyone else, is there one that you guys would like to look into and get a little bit more detail like this on?
Like I mentioned, I have a little bit of SHIB, so I'd be
Okay.
interested in that.
She pulled him up.
Okay, so let's see. SHIB.
Hey, Frank, I see you unmuted. Was there one you were looking at? You can.
No, I should unmute.
Okay, yeah, and if you want to type it in chat, that's okay too.
Okay. And if Frank, if you decide to put that one up there, we'll go ahead and jump onto that one next. So for now, let's look at SHIB. Doing a basic breakdown of a lot of this stuff. Okay. One thing to keep in mind, what contract does this run off of? This is an Ethereum-based contract. So, and I, full disclosure, I hold SHIB myself, but that's not going to change anything I have to say about it. Which means you want to keep in mind that's a huge base for them. That means that they're on a well-established network, which means less chance of outages, less chance of issues being able to actually trade the token, and more exchanges that might be able to hold the token. But because this is something like Ethereum, those ERC20 tokens, they are extremely costly most of the time to actually trade. So you have to keep that in mind when you're thinking of purchasing or selling, because you might pay a premium price once you do sell to actually get your tokens, distributed across the network. So if we look at SHIB's white paper.
Could you give an example, like how much that could be, Anthony? Like
Sure.
if it had to be done in several trades?
If it had to be done in several trades, is what you said?
Yeah. Because I mean, it's okay to pay like $100, $200 once if you're making thousands, but if you had to do it several times,
That's very true. So one thing you want to look at, and this is a little bit different for me. I don't usually look at it on these systems, so it's going to take me a minute to find it on here. But typically, if you're on one of your exchanges that you purchase from, let me see if I can find it. Let's try. This is one I know pretty well. Prices. All right. All right. So if you were to sell this, oh, it's not even going to give us a chart. Let's see if we can get lucky with anything else. Okay, another thing we can actually do is current cost for Ethereum transaction. Let's see, current level 0.6654, 50. See if I can find a better breakdown of this, because this is not super clear.
I'll do the math off of that. The last few times I've looked, it's been like $20 to $25 to do any kind of transaction. So if you're only, have $100 of a token, paying 20 to 25 bucks to move it, it's kind of not cool.
And if I could find a better example of this, because I can't do it on their website right now, it looks like. Oh, you know what? Here we go. 6 Gwei is going to be the average cost to go ahead and send something currently. And what you're going to want to look at is, what does that translate to in the token yourself that you're trading? So let's say SHIB to Gwei ratio.
I think you typoed the Gwei.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. Here we go. So 1 unit of gas on the Ethereum network is going to be equivalent to 192,684.81 SHIB. So if you had to spend 6 Gwei right now, you're going to spend the equivalent of 1,156,108.85 SHIB. But what does that mean in actual cost of SHIB?
Yeah, they got the US dollars just below your mouse there. It looks like $2.32.
Where is
For
that?
gas right there. Yeah.
Right here?
Yeah, over to the left. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. So is that, let me check and see, is that 2.32 per gas?
That's what it looks like. So that would be like 15 bucks, something like that.
Yeah.
So we're still in the.
Let's try, we can just do the basic conversion on here.
2 times 6. Oh, yeah, just under $14. So still pretty pricey.
Yep. Yeah, so it's going to cost you $15 worth of SHIB just to go ahead and sell your SHIB. So is it going to be really worth it later on? That's something you have to keep in mind. So large transaction volumes are going to be more valuable to you if you're planning to sell while the gas fees are high. But gas fees do change on a regular basis. So one thing you can do, and I'm not sure if I can show it through crypto.com right now, because this is usually who I'm most familiar with. Let's see. They have it on their exchange itself, but I'm not sure if it'll show it without me being signed in.
Some of the newer coins are trying to promote gasless transactions. I don't know how they could do that, but
They are, and we'll go ahead.
What network are they on?
I'm not entirely sure. Like Scarlet Chains is one, I know that, but they were a node, and those node projects were pretty scammy. So I don't have any of that.
You know, let's try just doing that as a general search. So gasless chains. Minutes. Let's see. Tokens.
I don't see how that would work on Ethereum.
Yeah.
You know, if you have your own chain,
Yeah,
you could
it's
do
its
that.
own, it has to be their own chain.
Yeah, I was going to say they probably have their own chain that's actually a layer 2. And if they're doing a layer 2, they probably do off-chain consolidation, and then probably do it as a snapshot, kind of like I think Polygon does.
Or like the Lightning Network does on Bitcoin.
Could be similar to that too.
They don't write to the blockchain until that node closes.
And I think this is probably more of what we'd be looking at is utilizing proof of stake rather than proof of work, which Ethereum did recently change over to, so that's important to note. Proof of stake runs differently than proof of work in the fact that there's no needing to compute all of that data in the same way and compete for it. Proof of stake is they're just putting in their staked amount of that crypto to authenticate the fact that they are doing these transactions. And some platforms will use methods like slashing validators if they don't perform appropriately. So that's just different ways that you can look at it. Is if it's proof of stake, you're going to get tend to be lower transaction fees than proof of work chains, because it takes a lot more computing or hash power to do a proof of work.
There's no comparison on that.
No.
It's like, a factor of 100 or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So shouldn't Ethereum's gas fees have dropped quite a bit since they've done the merge? They haven't done the proof of stake yet.
Well, so that's the weird thing is for Ethereum's merge, the merge didn't actually change them. It changed them to proof of stake, but it didn't actually change their gas fees, oddly enough. That comes in a separate development cycle. I think that's the splurge. I think it's like
okay.
two more upgrades down.
Gotcha.
So who's getting all those fees if there aren't miners involved?
I believe most of it gets turned into a burn now. So like there's a new burn mechanism that brings the inflation down to, I think it's like 0.016% or something like that.
Okay.
And so most of it gets burned, and then the rest of it gets sent to the rest of it, I think, gets sent to a smart contract. I could be wrong on that last part. And yes, Chris, you're right. It is essentially deflationary at that point. It's very close. And eventually their goal is to become a deflationary asset. So let's see. Here's kind of a basic explanation of it, which just kind of says, you have to have some kind of value in each transaction. But you want to make sure that there's a way that people can go ahead and do these without having the budget be so far gone that no one can afford to actually be on the project, which Ethereum was, say back in 2021, there was a point where Ethereum was so high of gas fees, most people couldn't afford to do a simple transaction on there, and there was no point to it. So that is one piece you really want to look at with your crypto, because the more, and it's not going to be the same for all of them because they don't all use the term gas, but essentially gasless transactions or low fee transaction networks are important to keep in mind when you purchase a crypto, because that's going to impact your bottom line when you do sell. Another fundamental to look at with some of these is going to be things like mining rate. Say, let's go HNT just because it's popping out in my head again. Again, full disclosure, do own HNT. But so let's see if we can find their the stuff from their actual information. GitHub is a real, oh no, this isn't GitHub, this is Get Connected. My mistake. GitHub can usually be a really good place to get information from, but I'm not seeing them popping up right now. Here we go. So say like mining on Helium, it's a little bit different than your traditional mining operation, because instead of computing certain things, for this crypto, you have to keep in mind, they're doing hotspots, internet hotspots. So when you're doing, when you're providing that coverage for the network, you are essentially mining the crypto. That's how theirs operates. But it's going to be different for other ones. So let's say if you were to mine Bitcoin. So let's go with one that's a little cleaner. So one thing you want to keep in mind is, sorry for the page changes, is mining has a big impact on whether something is going to be considered what's called ESG or not. And ESG is environmental, social, and governance. And that's a hot topic now for most investments and most investment firms, say like the largest of pretty much all of them, BlackRock. BlackRock focuses a lot on ESG now. And if a company or a crypto doesn't meet what they would consider ESG standards, a lot of times they're either going to put very minimal money into it, or they're not going to put anything into it at all. And it's going to get kind of crapped on a lot because it's not either environmentally friendly, or it's not appropriately decentralized, or the governance isn't clearly outlined. So if you look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin got just dropped on a lot because its ESG was really poor because it's proof of work. It used a lot of hash rate, a lot of power to actually do the mining and the computations for the network, which is why, say, for instance, Ethereum had actually changed over to proof of stake. One of the big things they wanted was to be able to meet kind of more environmentally friendly standards, even though their use of power for computation was like 0.0, I think it was like 0.01 of all the power worldwide. They still wanted to make sure that they weren't being what's considered environmentally unsound. So you also want to
mention one thing, Anthony, about that is that, you know, this ESG is really kind of a misnomer, because if you look at all the ATM systems that are out on 24/7, 365, the banking system alone uses 50, 100 times, 1,000 times more power than everything that has to do with Bitcoin and everything in the history of Bitcoin. They whine and gripe about it, and it's really not even anything close. It's just a political toy to use, in my opinion. And the amount of power that Bitcoin uses compared to other established industries that nobody questions is minimal. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, and that's a very good point to bring up. And I'm not saying this as like ESG is something you have to follow because it's, you know, whether it's important or not. The key point is, because these big players tend to follow it, you want to make sure that you're recognizing that's where the money is going to flow into the heaviest. Whether you agree with it or not, that's where the big boys are putting their money lately. So just keeping that in mind, that's going to give you a good idea of where your crypto might be able to improve, or maybe your crypto is already there and has a better chance of being more mass adopted. So just kind of changing gears just slightly from that. One thing you can keep in mind, and I can't show you this on here right now because it's not going to let me in. I don't have it set up for that. But let's see, gas fee. What's the term for it? Gas fee chart. A lot of times you can find these online where they give you an idea of how the gas fees are doing at a certain time, as we were mentioning before. And this can give you a good standing as to, okay, do I want to try and sell now while the gas fees are all the way up here and it's going to cost me like almost $1,000? Or do I want to sell when the gas fees are all the way down here and they're maybe more like $30? So just something you can track as you're planning to sell, because that does play a huge factor in your actual take home. Now, kind of running back to what we were doing for Shiba before, their paper is going to be outlined a little bit more cleanly. They want it to be 100% run by the community. So if that's one of the key metrics, you're going to want to make a note of that. If they want 100% run by the community, how are they actually achieving that? It needs to be DeFi. So is there some reason to believe that they're not fully decentralized? Is there too much of their token in a certain wallet? Is their exchange actually something that's shut down at times because of high trading volume? If it's shut down because the network crashed, that's one thing. But if it's shut down because the actual team shut it down, that's a completely different story. If they have that kind of control, you're not really dealing with a DeFi exchange. Another piece to keep in mind is they mentioned their founder, Ryoshi, but let's try doing a little bit of a search on this one, because, oh, my apologies. Wow, that is just not working. So we're actually going to take that out. I am lazy and don't want to type. So you've got the founder, Ryoshi, but it shows 0 tweets here because this probably isn't even his page, just being fair. But you want to look at the history of Ryoshi himself, and it's going to be harder because as it mentions right here, he's an anonymous developer. So any information we tend to get from this developer is going to be very brief and not very succinct. And sometimes it's going to be coming from third parties. So you're going to have trouble really following the project. That's not necessarily a deal breaker though, because what we want to see, team, or it's not going to let me do that. Nothing in here about who their team is, who their leader is, management. Nothing there either. Develop. That's a little bit concerning. So since we can't find it in here easily, let's try this a different way. Should development team. Author Ryoshi. Let's see if we can find anyone else on this who's involved with the team. I don't see anything so far. So let's go back. Satoshi Kusama. And let's see. 847,000 followers. One thing we want to make sure is this one actually validated as his official one, which it could very well be, but I don't see anything about verified as his actual Twitter page. So we want to be careful about this. Just something to keep in mind. It's not a deal breaker, but it's important to know. So let's see. Shaitoshi Kusama, let's see if we have any information on him from his Twitter. Most of it seems to be related to his actual project, but let's do a little bit of a deep dive off of Twitter and see if we can find him on LinkedIn. Primarily news. Okay, so we'll go back. Coin page. Trying to see if I can find us a reliable source for information on him himself, which again, this could be a pseudonym again, but we just want to see what information we can find. History. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Watcher Guru. If you guys are, my apologies, but I've looked at that one before and it's not a very, it doesn't feel very well put together for their information. Medium tends to be a decent resource, so let's see. These are all posts by him. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything else on here for him. Okay, so again, we're having a red flag here because it's hard to find any information on one of the other developers. Decrypt.co, usually that one's pretty reliable. Stablecoin reward token. Let's see if we have any names listed in here. Ryoshi. Yep, nothing else. So while I can't show it right here, let me see if on their website they have any more information listed as well. Oh, that's not a good sign. Okay. Nope. So it's going to be this one then. Okay, it is still working. Good. And in here already, you can see something that's important to note as well, which is the total value locked, or TVL. Because they're trying to be a decentralized exchange, they also are going to have value from their token that's locked up in these smart contracts. And so a larger amount of this is going to signal more liquidity, which means more selling. You can easily sell or trade the token. But if this is very small, like, to be honest, 27 million is not a huge amount for a crypto. But if you're seeing even less than that, like in the thousands, it means it's going to be very hard to get in and out of that token. Just as something to keep in mind. So let's see if even on, say, like their website, if you can find their information about their team. Let's see. A lot of times, an easy way is to go to the very bottom Let's see. Really good piece of information. They're top investors. Now, of course, you want to confirm these for yourself.
I think
So
those are
they-
the investors in the Certec site.
Oh, you're right. Thank you.
Yeah, I think
I didn't
you
realize that it
scrolled a little bit too far past the info.
was supposed to be going to their about for. Oh, I see what happened.
That's the
It-
bottom of that site's. It had jumps down. It looks like it jumped down.
Thank you for clarifying that. I thought it was still on Shiba Inu's website, but apparently it had switched to a third-party website, which is kind of a,
This is their audit. Yeah, whoever did their audit.
yeah, that's their audit company. Okay. Let's see. Actually, that's going to take longer to get to. Nope. See, that's one thing I would typically say as a red flag. It's not a deal breaker, but not being able to see who the team is with actual names is kind of a difficult piece to swallow. So let's see if we can find that anywhere for them. Let's see. No. Here we go. Nope, that's just a trader. Let's see. And again, very difficult to find people on their team.
Yeah,
One
or a
thing-
board of advisors or something like that. A lot of times they'll list, okay, here's the team, and then here's some advisors.
Exactly. And one thing I can say is there's a lot of these cryptocurrencies that online they will have, they'll have like an email server that you can get sent regular updates about their products. And I know, for instance, SHIB, I have them on mine, and they send out regular updates as to new people they've added to their team. But it's strange to me that I don't see them on their actual website being listed. So since we can't find it in here, we're going to move on to another piece because that's just a good example of a red flag there. What are some of the pieces that make up the cryptocurrency itself? This is going to be a big part of fundamental analysis. Its tokenomics, in this case, are going to depend upon 3 different tokens in and of themselves. SHIB is just one piece. SHIB is the basic currency, but how much of it is there? 1 quadrillion tokens. Quadrillion, like let that number sink in for a minute. That is an insane number. That's more than the entire monetary system. The M1 money supply, that's entirely more than that even. But again, then you want to look at, okay, what does it do? Right here, it's just primarily their exchange token. What is their leash token? Their leash token is going to be a rebase token. So essentially stablecoin, similar to a stablecoin. Originally, they were going to rebase it to the price of Doge. Again, they do what they want to do. They didn't end up rebasing it to Doge. They rebased it to, let's see.
They turned it off. It said it later switched off for good, and the token went back to its ERC20 design.
Okay.
So what was it supposed to do? What was the function of it?
I believe the function of it was supposed to be a stable coin, essentially within their network that you got as a liquidity provider. So you would stake SHIB along with another token to do pairing, and you would get leash as part of that, as a way of kind of incentivizing you to provide that liquidity, and then you could either sell it or trade it off or get your stuff returned to you later on with any interest that you made, providing that liquidity. But like you said, they switched it off. So they decided leash wasn't really anything. They had Bone. This one, 250 million tokens. And it was meant to be a governance token, which means them being able to use it to vote on proposals. So rather than saying, oh, I have 1 quadrillion SHIB, so I get 100% of the voting rights. No, it was, I have so many Bone, which gives me my voting rights instead. And you had to stake, if I remember correctly, you would stake Shiba Inu, then you'd get leash. Then once you staked your leash, you could get Bone. I'm not entirely sure why they decided that structure was going to be beneficial, but it is something that you could look through in their white paper to determine more about. So that is an important piece though, because think about it. If this Bone token is based on their governance structure, that's going to fit into that ESG criteria. Now, if it's actually going to be something that fits actual ESG criteria, that's something you have to really look into and say, is this something people are going to say, yeah, that's worth investing in? Considering a lot of the other pieces, like the supply of 1 quadrillion SHIB, a lot of times people are going to say no, because there's a large supply, which means it's not going to be easily determined how it's been allocated, and it's going to be much lower in price. This piece right here is huge to determining if a market cap is actually worth what it says it is. So if you take, for instance, let's try SHIB's market cap.
And Anthony, we're getting a little past 11:30 here. We've got to wrap it up probably about 10 minutes.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead, instead of continuing down the rabbit hole with SHIB?
It might be a big hole.
Yeah.
on those guys.
Yeah, very much so. So why don't we see then if there's any questions or anything that needs clarification from anyone who's been on today?
Yeah, for sure. Let's see, Gabe, do you have any questions? I know you kind of research and look into different coins on a regular basis. Anything else we can clarify?
I do have a question. This is Chris.
Yeah.
So I know, okay, so we look at the project's website, we look at the white paper, we look at the social media and the utility of the token or coin, and even the price history. And I guess the question is, does it matter? Your perspective as far as how or what kind of a buyer you are. So if you're looking for long-term versus a short-term trade, does it matter when you're analyzing the coins or tokens, does it matter on your perspective and how you're going about, are you going to hold it forever? Or are you going to sell it tomorrow? I mean, does that even matter?
Yeah, if you're just looking to trade it, you may not care, some of the things, but you don't want it to be a scam coin either.
Very true.
Yeah, so kind of going along with what Brad was saying there. Yeah, if you're trying to trade it, if your time horizon is probably within like 3, even 6 months at times, you're probably not going to look at most of these metrics that heavily. You just want to kind of see, is this a viable coin? Like, is this something that's not just going to tank tomorrow for no reason? So just some of the basic metrics, like analyzing the volume, the trading volume, the active wallets, and if it actually has utility. So it doesn't matter what the utility is, as long as it has utility and it has active users, because if it has no utility, it's a shitcoin. And if it's one of those, it doesn't matter what you try to do really to identify, oh, is this going to go up or is this going to go down? Because it's just a pump and dump.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, Brad, I have a question. Pertaining to pricing due to value, sometimes companies, I'll give you an example, like Tron, would try to increase their price. And what would happen is they would claim another big corporation coming in, like say Google, is going to be partnering with them. So in reality, it didn't happen. It didn't materialize. So the price of the coin went up. And then once people realized that it wasn't true, it came back down. That's just one example, but others are doing it as well. So basically, you have to become an investigator to see if that is true or not. That's just one example.
And that's a very good point you bring up. And the thing to recognize is that, yeah, a lot of us don't have the time to really do a deep dive on a lot of this for multiple coins and really figuring out, okay, what's the background of this look like? Is everything accurate? So one of the most helpful things is doing a brief overview of some of this information and then going to sources like YouTube or going to CoinMarketCap or random, just Googling the news for it and seeing what you can find that other people have already broken down and seeing if it makes sense to you. That's what saves me a lot of time, honestly. I'll put a couple of names in the chat for YouTube people who have I felt have done really great deep dives with research backing them, just to give you a better idea.
Cool. Okay, we can copy those links out of there on that. Okay. Any final questions before we call it a day? And just a reminder for those of you that are in the Fresno Clovis area, we're meeting tomorrow at Meaded's on Willow between Alluvial and Knees at 12 noon.
I know we don't have a lot of time to talk about it, but just real quick, what do you guys think about Hex and Richard Hart?
Yeah, that's a lengthy discussion there, but that would be a good one to, that one might be a good one to chat tomorrow about. We can also continue the conversation on the meetup page. Under the event page for today's event, there's comments. And so you guys can put links there. I usually put the link to the recording there, later in the day. So look for that. But if you have some other just kind of basically continue the conversation, we can do that there and obviously post links as well.
Tomorrow's an in-person meetup, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I couldn't make that one.
Okay.
Yeah, Coin Bureau is number one.
I had one big quick question for you. It's regarding Cardano. I had put it in the chat, but I don't think anyone. Drip drops. They have tokens. Those are tokens on the Cardano blockchain. Does anyone else do drip drops, and do you think it's worth it?
I honestly haven't heard of it, and I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't know Cardano was doing that.
I've been doing it for this is my 38th epoch, and I have millions of tokens that have dropped onto my Cardano wallet. And I was just wondering because it's just various. Some of them, of course, are meme coins, but some of them are not. And so you have drops. I can drop the. I don't know if I can. Let's see. Hold on. It's just drip drops. So it's with the Z. I think it's this. Let's see. Hold on. Just what it sounds like.
Thank you for sharing that.
I wonder if it's IO or S1. Let me double check real quick. www.drip.
Have you guys heard of dusting?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking too.
Because dusting, if you don't know, that's a good way to get all your funds stolen out of your wallet.
Yeah, so if you want to protect yourself from that, you definitely want to make sure that whatever wallet you have associated with it to get the actual crypto is not associated with the wallet that has your actual Cardano in it or whatever other token you're using. Because obviously with that dusting, they can just go ahead and empty your wallet by sending you those little bits of tokens, essentially.
There's the, I put it on there. It's drip drops with the Z.io. And it's actually legitimate. I've been doing it, like I said, for 38 epochs. And you can find out all about it at that website.
Thanks. And I copied that into the Google Doc for today's event too. Okay. Very good. Okay. Well, Anthony, thank you for offering the suggestion on the topic for today, and obviously for all the work you put into it to present. Really appreciate that. And if you guys have any, other topics you want to talk about in the future, feel free to reach out. I'm always looking to find out what you guys are interested in. If not, I kind of guess at what you're interested in, what's popular, and we talk about that. But usually what happens a lot of the times is the meeting will kind of run one way or the other, depending on who's here, type of thing, if we don't have a super hardcore topic. So always looking for feedback during and before and after the meetings as well. And again, drop some comments in the event page, and there is a link to the Google Doc on the event page too, so you guys can find that there. All right, guys, we will see you hopefully tomorrow at me and Ed's, and the rest of you will see online here in early October. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks. Appreciate it.